Hi there Walksters, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and yesterday was the entertainment showcase for D23 2024, and as we've come to expect, they've announced a lot of new details for upcoming Disney movies and also original series coming to Disney Plus as well, so we've got a lot to discuss. But before we do, be sure to subscribe down below, hit that notification bell as well to stay up to date with all the latest news coming out of D23 here on the channel. And also, I'd like to say a special thanks to the official Walt Disney Club over on Patreon for always supporting the channel. But anyways, with all that being said, let's begin with Walt Disney Animation Studios, as the next movie to be released later on this year is Moana 2, which arrives in theatres on November 27th. And as part of this presentation, we've got a brand new trailer for Moana 2, and this confirms that the sequel is actually set 3 years after the events of the first movie that came out in 2016. And now Moana is a big sister to her 3-year-old little sister called Samir, which is this character that you can see here in the trailer footage now. And as part of the presentation, we got further clarification over plot and synopsis for this movie, and it's going to follow Moana as she receives a call from her ancestors, and she'll then have to set out on another journey to the far seas of Oceania into dangerous, long-lost waters, sailing to an ancient island to then be able to break the curse and connect all the islands together once again through her wayfindings. That's the synopsis. It's similar in a way to Restoring the Heart of Te-Fiti from the original movie, but obviously it's expanding the Moana universe in many ways to these other islands. It was also said that there's going to be a whole new cast of villains that Moana has to overcome, and Kakamora is going to be one of those villains, but there's going to be new adversaries for her to overcome there. And Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who's reprising the role of Maui, also stated that the biggest villain in many ways is the storm of all storms that Moana has to sail through, so that's something to keep an eye out for there. Auli E. Cavallio was also on stage. She gave a performance of one of the songs from Moana 2. I would love to play it here in the video, but I can't for copyright reasons, so I'm sure it's somewhere on social media if you want to go check that out. But anyway, let's move on to the next movie, which comes out next year in 2025, and that's Zootopia 2, and it'll be arriving in theatres November 25th, 2025. And this will see Jennifer Goodwin, Jason Bateman and Idris Elba reprise all of their roles for the movie. But Zootopia 2 is going to be set around trying to track down this new reptile character called Gary. And this character is going to be voiced by Academy Award winner Ke Huy Quan from obviously Everything Everywhere All at Once fame there, and obviously Indiana Jones and Loki as well. And they also showed a very brief snippet of footage from Zootopia 2, and it showed Nick and Judy in a new part of town called Marsh Market. There wasn't much more given away about the synopsis of the movie, but it's going to be centered around tracking down this character of Gary. We don't know anything else about the plot at this time. Then the next thing to talk about is actually 2026 in terms of Walt Disney Animation, because that was when Frozen 3 was originally set to come out. But they did talk about Frozen 3. We actually got this new piece of concept art for Frozen 3, and Frozen 3 is now actually being pushed back another year to November 24th, 2027. Instead of it coming out in November 2026, that's when it's being pushed back to. And they said that they're developing a story that's so big that is probably going to need to be told over 2 installments. So Frozen 3 and Frozen 4 kind of being worked on side by side. That might be the reason why they're delaying it a little bit longer to kind of work on both these stories at the same time. But it is interesting that we don't know what they got scheduled for November 2026 in terms of the Walt Disney Animation Studios slate at this time. So keep an eye out for that. They might announce it next year as we get closer. Then we've got Pixar Animation. There was a lot announced here. Now I want to begin with some Disney Plus news, as there's a brand new series that's going to be coming out later on next year, and it's called Dream Productions, which you can probably guess already. It's an Inside Out spin-off series which is going to be set between the events of Inside Out 1 and Inside Out 2, and it's centered around the production studio Dream Productions within the mind of Riley, where, you know, all the dreams are created. So it'll be interesting to see if it's a workplace comedy or something like that, and how abstract they go with a lot of these concepts for the episodes, because obviously it's dreams, so they've got a lot to explore here within this series. So that's coming out later on next year on Disney Plus in 2025. And then later on this year, actually December 6th, Win or Lose, which is a original Pixar series which is going to be coming to Disney Plus, and at long last we've got the trailer for this series, and this is going to be following a co-ed middle school softball team called the pickles in the week leading up to their big championship game. And each one of the 20-minute episodes, there's 8 in total, is going to be following a different character in the exact same week. So it's a unique premise or concept for the series, as each one of the stories in a way will overlap and give more clues to the holistic storytelling that they're doing within the series. So that's coming out later on this year on Disney+. And then we come to the movie side of things for Pixar. And the first thing we're going to talk about is Elio, which is coming out June 13th, 2025. Now, there's been some big production changes to this movie. The first one being that when it was initially announced, it was going to be directed by Adrian Molina, who was the co-director and co-writer of Coco. But now the project is said to be steered and directed by Domi Shi, who is the director of Turning Red instead. So that's one of the big production changes. And then the other one is that Zoe Saldana is replacing America Ferrara as the voice of Elio's aunt in the movie. So some big production changes there. Whenever I hear production changes on this kind of scale, it does concern me a little bit that like maybe the production has floundered in their direction of what they want to do with the storytelling, and that might affect the end product. But I remain cautiously optimistic because I want original movies at Pixar to do well. Obviously, sequels have their place. We've just seen Inside Out 2 make $1.5 billion, but I really do want to see Pixar go in new directions with original movies. And speaking of which, they've got a new original movie that they announced as well, which is called Hoppers, and it's going to be coming out in March of 2026. And no, not that Hoppers that you can see here, not Hopper from A Bug's Life, but in actual fact, they've given a premise for this movie, and just follow along with me here, as this is a bit of a wild premise, but this is going to follow a young girl called Mabel who somehow transfers her mind into a robot beaver to then infiltrate their animal kingdom. And she winds up befriending a regal beaver called King George and uniting the animals in their fight against the local mayor, who plans to destroy their home and develop the land that they call home into new property developments. So that's the story, or the plot synopsis for this movie. It's a bit wacky and out there, but then again, that's kind of what we expect from Pixar. The character of King George is going to be voiced by Saturday Night Live alum Bobby Moynihan, and the villain of the movie, the local mayor, is going to be voiced by Mad Men star Jon Hamm. So that's Hoppers. It's coming out March 2026. And then also in 2026, June 19th, 2026 to be precise, Toy Story 5 will arrive in theatres. And this is being directed by Andrew Stanton, who directed Finding Nemo, Finding Dory, WALL-E, has been a co-writer on all of the Toy Story movies. So it's in good hands from that kind of perspective. And he said that this new movie is going to be toys meet tech, or toys versus tech. And this will see Woody, Buzz, Jessie, all the gang reunite together. Even after the events of Toy Story 4, we'll see Woody and Buzz back together again. And it will centre around the toys competing with technology for the affection and the attention of their kids who used to play with them. And it was also said that there's going to be like 50 commemorative Buzz Lightyear toys within the movie somehow. And they're going to have some sort of malfunction where they're going to be stuck in play mode. So that's probably going to be a comedic gag being used throughout the whole movie as well. But not much more was given in terms of details on Toy Story 5. I personally think this plot synopsis is much stronger than the plot synopsis we had with Toy Story 4, which went all over the place in terms of splitting up Woody and Buzz and the gang of toys, and instead bringing them back together in this movie to overcome technology now competing for many children's attention. And so with that premise, I am hopeful that this kind of rounds out the franchise in a much better way than personally what I thought Toy Story 4 did. So Toy Story 3 I think was the point to stop, but if they're going to tell this story, this might be able to be a good way to cap off the franchise with Toy Story 5. And the last thing that Pete Docter, the president of Pixar, spoke about is that Incredibles 3 is currently in development at Pixar. There weren't any details yet released for the movie, except for Brad Bird, who obviously directed Incredibles, and Incredibles 2 is set to return and direct this third installment of Incredibles 3. It hasn't got any sort of release date yet, but if I was to guess, I bet it's probably going to be that time slot of June 18th, 2027 for Incredibles 3. Then we move into Walt Disney Studios news, and I'm just going to briefly go over a lot of this stuff because we've got announcements but not much in the way of detail. And the first thing is that Lilo and Stitch, the live action version of that, is coming out next summer, which is likely going to be May 23rd, 2025. And we've got our first look at live action Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, which we can see here in this footage. Not much more was shown, obviously, we didn't get any sort of teaser trailer, but the fact that we've got this now and it's coming out next year, I expect a teaser trailer to come out later on this year sometime. Then it was also announced that Freakier Friday, which is the sequel to Freaky Friday, the movie from 2003, is going to see Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis reprise their roles 22 years later. And this arrives next year, but actually it's coming to theatres in 2025. I'm kind of surprised about that. I thought it might just go straight to Disney+, but Freakier Friday is apparently arriving in theatres next year. There was also an announcement of a movie called Monster Jam, which is starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and it's a movie about monster trucks. No more details are really given, except that announcement there. And then also, we've received our first trailer for Snow White, which is coming out March 21st, 2025 in theatres. And I've got to say, if you look at this footage right here that you can see, I think the art direction is actually very faithful to the classic animated feature, Walt Disney's first animated feature. And the fact it looks like it's staying very faithful to the art direction of the animated classic gives me more hope for this movie in terms of, you know, it's not going to try do anything crazy in terms of the story. Obviously, we don't know what it's going to be like yet, but just judging from the trailer, I've got to say that I am cautiously optimistic about Snow White coming out in 2025. I wasn't before, but that trailer has actually got me to the point where I'm now cautiously optimistic and actually looking forward to seeing the movie in 2025. But then again, Pinocchio was fairly faithful to the original art direction as well, and I didn't really enjoy that movie that much. And these live action remakes, in my opinion, need to stop, but they make a lot of money, or they have in the past, and so it is what it is. They're going to continue to do them. And then the next thing that they announced was Tron Aries, which we've obviously known about for quite a while, but it's coming out next October 10th, 2025, and this saw Jared Leto, Greta Lee, Evan Peters come to the stage, along with the dude himself, Jeff Bridges, come to the stage as well. And it was announced that Tron Aries will feature the characters. Instead of staying within the digital world, they're going to be going out into the real world in some way. And also sticking with the tradition of, you know, Daft Punk did the music for Tron Legacy back in 2010. This time around, it's got 9 Inch Nails composing the music for Tron Aries. So that's another announcement they made there as well. And then lastly, in terms of Walt Disney Studios productions, we've got Mufasa, the Lion King, which is coming out on December 20th, 2024. Some of the music is being composed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, obviously Hamilton, Moana and Encanto fame, and they also had Lee Boem perform one of the songs from the movie, which, if you're not familiar with Lee Boem, he performed the intro for Circle of Life from the 1994 animated classic. And this movie follows the story of Mufasa and his brother Scar, or back then as he was known, Taka, and how they became brothers. Now, personally, where I stand on this, we've got a trailer for this, and you're seeing some of this footage right now, but like, I saw the 2019 version of The Lion King, and it was fine, but like, I don't know who was asking for a prequel to The Lion King. Personally, I think a sequel would have made more sense, as they've already done that in the animated movies, so they could have just done that, but I don't know if it's got much buzz or hype around it, but we'll see. It's coming out, obviously, just before Christmas of this year, and so that's going to be Disney's big release this holiday season, basically. And then, next year, Christmas in 2025, for their big holiday release then, we've got Avatar 3. And James Cameron, the director of Avatar, did come to the stage, and he said that the movie's name, the Avatar 3, is going to be titled Avatar: Fire and Ash. And he added that it's going to be going to new cultures, new biomes, new settings within the world of Pandora that we've never seen before. And he did state that it's not what you've come to expect from Pandora, but it is what you'll want when it comes to the final product, when you actually do end up seeing it. And speaking of that, there was no footage shown, just some concept art for Fire and Ash. The footage wasn't ready to be shown yet. So that's everything in terms of Disney Animation, Pixar Animation, Walt Disney Studios, that was announced at D23 for the entertainment showcase. But now it's over to you, the Waltoneers. I would love to know, what are your thoughts and opinions on everything that was announced? What are you most excited for to see in theatres over the next few years from Disney? And with all that being said, be sure to subscribe down below, hit the notification bell, and give this video a massive thumbs up if you haven't already. And also, I'd like to say a massive thank you to the official Waltoneer Club over on Patreon, and the Waltoneer Gold members that you can see here on the screen right now, and official Waltoneer Diamond members, JC Russell and Kyle Mahan. And with that being said, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.